I'll give you short odds that we're on for a winning edition tonight. Welcome to a special roadshow which promises a great lineup with 2 shows in one. Regulars of the roadshow will know we recently enjoyed a day at the races here at Ascot Racecourse. It was a great day, packed with fantastic finds, so much so that we've more unscreened gems to bring you from our winners' enclosure shortly. And it's not the only place we've struck a rich vein of gold, so tonight stand by to catch up on the extra spoils from 2 recent locations. We're starting tonight in the county of Squires and Spires, Northamptonshire, where Lord Spencer extended a kind invitation to bring our team of experts to the lawns of Althorp. It was one of those perfect summer days with glorious sunshine, a beautiful location and plenty of unexpected delights.
I've often heard it said that dishes like this of Adam and Eve were made to teach children their Bible stories. But somehow, when you look at a cartoon like this, how can anyone take it seriously?
No, not really.
Where does it come from?
It was part of my grandmother's estate. She bought a house and I believe part of the contents from a doctor's widow round about 1930.
Oh, right.
And it's been in my family ever since then.
So you have it hanging up at home,
yes,
then?
I have it hanging up in the hall. I don't have it hanging so that it faces the front door because I don't want people to think that is how we behave in our house.
Oh, right. I suppose it is a fairly graphic depiction, isn't it? They've got very large fig leaves there to hide their modesty.
Yes.
But, and in profile, Adam here, either side of the apple tree with the serpent,
yes.
And Eve there. I mean, she looks almost Picasso-esque in that
Yes,
profile,
quite,
doesn't
yes,
it?
yes.
I mean, extraordinary painting, isn't it? Because Delft was made in Holland and in many other countries, but this one is an English Delft dish.
Oh, yes.
It was, we can look at the design on the border, this so-called blue dash border around the edge,
yes.
And what we know as sponge trees.
Yes.
I mean, the classic look of the English blue dash charger, made in Delft at Bristol and in London. And the clue to when it was made is on the back. Here we've got a tin glaze, this Delft white glaze, came in about 1700.
Oh, yes.
So we're going back to 300 years ago. It was made around 1705, 1710. Very amusing. And, of course, now very collectible. So even broken, this is quite an expensive dish. I mean, collectors won't mind that damage. They would happily give £4,000 for it.
Would they? As much as that? Oh dear. My wife will have to start liking it after all.
Right.
It's a very impressive writing box, this, both in scale and size and decoration. Made to be sort of carted around, and so very often, even though they have these protective brass bindings around them, they don't have quite the decorative elements that this one has. How do you end up owning a box like this?
Well, it was given to my mother by her grandmother in about 1920.
Right, so it's been in the family.
It's been in the family for
that long.
80 odd years, yes.
I absolutely love this oak leaf border, all inlaid with brass, but then with a very dark timber. It looks like ebony, doesn't it?
Ebony, yes.
Standing out, and very distinctive acorns and oak leaves. Let's have a look inside. And the quality just continues, doesn't it? Wonderful original Morocco leather. And look at the gilding here, in really pristine condition. All the normal recesses for ink pots and for pens. But I gather there's a secret to it as well, really.
Well, there is, because there is a secret compartment in it, which we knew that there was, but we didn't know how to get into it.
Oh, I see. So you'd worked out that there was...
We worked out there must be, because there's a big... Nothing happens below that.
Yes.
And so there's a big area there without any access to it. And
yes.
It also moved very slightly.
Oh,
as well.
how tantalising!
I know, but we didn't know how to open it.
So what did you do? I mean, normally there's a pretty obvious sort of sprung button here, and you press it and a drawer shoots out. But
we had no idea, and we had it restored because it was in a bad condition.
Yes.
And the restorer found how to access the secret compartment.
Now, you're going to reveal the secret to me.
I'll reveal the secret to you.
So there's the pin.
Take a pin and you press down on one of the hinge screws,
Look
which we would
at
never,
that.
ever have dreamt about.
No.
And then that opens up this area below.
In fact, once you see it, it's quite obvious because this screw top here does look different to
slightly
the other
different to the other.
five, doesn't
Yes.
it? But if you'd not worked it
We've
out.
never
Well, your
worked it
family
out,
hadn't
no.
worked it out
No.
in sort of
80
80 or so
no.
years.
No.
That's quite remarkable, and it's not a feature I've seen on
Really?
other such boxes. So, of course, the question that I'm dying to know is what on earth was inside? Was it completely empty?
No, it was full of papers. There were hundreds and hundreds of papers, and they were all very tightly folded up and literally tied up with pink ribbon.
And what went through your mind when you found these? I mean, did you think you were about to find out the secrets, you know, somebody's personal secrets of a lifetime, or?
Well, I'd hoped it would be our family, but it wasn't. And all the documents related to another family, which we
Yes.
found out later were
Yes.
a family in Newark. We've got some of them here. But mainly it was letters and shop receipts and just various documents that this lady apparently never threw anything away.
Which is the first document? How does it
Well,
all kick off, as it
Well,
were?
the earliest we can find, or any earliest one that we found, was 1820, and this is a list of presents which presumably she was given at about the age of 12.
And this is her, is it?
And this is her,
Mariana
Bamforth. Yes.
It's very interesting then to know that this Mariana Bamforth, who owned this, was, I would certainly expect, to be the first person who ever had this, because it dates, all the decorative design indicates strongly to it being dating from around 1820. So it looks as though her receiving this gift or purchasing this was just, you know, the start. And so really all this paperwork is completely interwoven
So it
with
ties
the
in.
object itself. But the value of something like this, if you were to sell it at auction, for example, would probably not exceed £1,500,
No.
maybe £1,800. But yes, absolutely extraordinary to find everything squirreled away, and the fact that you're the first person in your family to sort of unearth the secret, as it were.
Now, I suppose the word Biggles means so much in the English language to everybody, whether they read it or not. I read Biggles, I think I last read Biggles when I was about 14, so this is really a trip down memory lane for me.
Read Biggles at 14, right?
Last? I mean, I think isn't that when you're supposed to read Biggles?
I think so, yes.
When did you read Biggles?
I must have been 30, I think, when I read my first Biggles.
So you were a late developer?
Yes.
OK, you come to Biggles late in life, so you come really as a collector, don't you?
I do, yes.
You
I'm
have to
a
confess.
bibliophile.
Bibliophile. Or are you that famous word, the completist?
I could be some of that too, yes, I must have.
You must confess.
Yes.
So is it about getting all the series, all 98 books?
It is about that, and I think it's getting the perfect book as well, in very good condition.
So every Biggles book in good condition with the jacket. How are you doing?
That would be the ultimate aim. 70% there, maybe.
All right. Oh,
Possibly more.
So you've got far more than you
Yes,
brought us.
yeah.
OK. Have you got The Camels Are Coming?
No, I haven't.
Which
I
is the
haven't.
key book, isn't it?
It is, yes.
August 1932, published by John Hamilton, the first Biggles book.
I would pay a lot for that.
How much would you pay? The first edition.
A first edition in dust jacket.
Yep.
2,000 to 3,000 maybe.
I think you'd be paying more.
I would have to.
Yeah, the second and third printing of that in 33 is fetching 1,500 to 2,000. Anyway,
Yes.
it's a great subject because, again, it takes us into a part of British history which is, in a sense, lost. This is a trip round the world, it's a trip round history, it's all Britain used to be. I think also Johns was such an extraordinary person. All the First World War stories are based on fantastic practical experience, except he never had it. I mean, he learnt to fly. He was taught to fly by the Royal Flying Corps. He crashed every aeroplane he flew in, he seems. I mean, somebody said to him, if you were a German, you'd have an Iron Cross because you destroyed so many enemy aeroplanes. And
Quite true.
he then flew for the RAF after April 1918 as a bomber pilot. So all this stuff about flying stock with camels, he'd seen it. but it was never part of his life. And of course things change. You know, you start out in the First World War, you end up in the moon. Which was inconceivable in the 1930s.
Yeah,
so it's a vision of history. Where are you going next?
Very much. I don't know. I often veer off into illustrators and illustrations.
Well,
so
I mean, I think that's a wonderful image. And when you look at the book, I think this is just terrific. There is the drawing in the colour frontispiece. There it is. And I think it's a lovely drawing, and it shows that whole atmosphere, extraordinary flying achievements, great skill in the illustration by Stead, and also bringing to life that great moment in the story.
Yeah.
They're great reads. So you can get most of the set for 30 to 40, 50 pounds. But the early ones, they're the big investments, aren't they?
yeah, the Oxford published and John Hamilton.
The John Hamiltons, the
Very
first
rare.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
And yet they're going to be hundreds and thousands, aren't they?
They are certainly thousands. You could get for hundreds without the jacket. With a jacket, you're talking thousands.
Yeah. You never know. Next week in the charity shop, it's wonderful potential for collecting.
And you always dream about that day.
So you sit there dreaming away.
Yes.
When will I get number 1? Get those missing books.
Thank you.
Now, as well as the jewellery that you've brought in, you've also brought in the original receipt for the
That's
items. Jeweller in the Midlands, dated 25th of March 1960.
That's right.
And let's have a look at what we've got here. A gold ring, platinum ring, zircon cluster ring
That's
in a
right.
border of little diamonds,
Yeah.
which is this one here. So was it you that bought it at that time?
No, it was my sister-in-law.
I don't know whether a lot of people watching the roadshow will remember zircons.
No.
They were very much a gem of the 1950s and 60s. They were this blue colour,
That's right.
aquamarine in colour, but they had a far greater degree of sparkle in a diamond border. And that sort of setting, what you might call a target cluster setting, was the typical setting for it. Let's move on to the next piece on the receipt. 18-carat gold necklace, which is enamelled and set with gems with a pear-shaped pearl dropper. Now this one was £200,
That's
double the
right.
price of the zircon and diamond ring.
Yes.
Let's just have a look at it. Is it something that you wear and like yourself?
No, I had it inherited,
s-
from my sister-in-law.
So
Yeah.
so same as the zircon ring.
That's right,
Okay,
yes.
okay. Now, the date of this is interesting because this was made in the middle part of the Victorian era. At that time, around about 1865, 70, that sort of period,
Yeah.
jewellery was being made that had a very strong connection with the Renaissance.
Oh.
So this is what I would describe as a neo-Renaissance jewel.
Yeah.
And we have a name for jewellery like this. We call them Holbeinesque. So it's a Holbeinesque pendant,
Yeah.
which, if you like, suggests the era of the Renaissance. What a fantastic diamond
Really?
that is in the middle. It's an old stone, maybe from somewhere like Calcutta. It's an Indian diamond.
Yeah.
It's this cushion-shaped square stone in a border of rubies, in a border of diamonds, and then the frame has got enamel with white strips in, and then green and red.
Yeah.
A natural pearl drop, oriental pearl. This is not a cultured pearl.
No.
This is a natural
Real.
pearl.
Yeah.
Now, I know the chain's a little damaged, but it's worth just looking at the chain as well. It's glorious.
Beautiful.
The zircon and diamond cluster ring is a straightforward 1960s model. Costs £100. If you were selling it today, it might get around £400.
Uh-huh.
It's not madly valuable. Zircons are not everybody's cup of tea. The enamelled Holbeinesque pendant with all the colour, all this Renaissance inspiration, with a beautiful diamond in the centre, with an oriental pearl drop. I think that if you were selling that today, you're looking at the best part of £5,000 to £6,000.
Goodness. Well, it is a surprise.
Now, I know this is something of a personal question, but would you describe yourself as a party girl, a party animal?
Probably not, no.
Probably not.
No.
Well, it's just that you've brought along today a girl who I think might aptly be described as the ultimate party girl. I suppose the first question I've got to ask you is how it come you end up sort of sharing a house with her?
Well, it was actually a friend of mine who was moving house, and they were going to throw it out because they didn't particularly like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, no, I'll have it, thank you very much. There was something about it that I liked, so...
Well, good for you. That's my favourite type of purchase. Out for note.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, let's have a look at the girl, shall we? Because what I like about her is that she shouts her period. I mean, this girl belongs to the Art Deco years. She's a party girl when, quite frankly, after the misery of the First World War, the new roaring 20s came along and everybody just wanted to have a good time. This girl is a multi-coloured type of Pierrette figure. She's holding a mask and she's wearing this fabulous, what looks almost like a pyjama suit, doesn't it, really? Yeah. And on this black base, she's just set off a treat. Now, at the risk of being clever, I don't really need to turn it over to look to see who made it, because the statement is there. But just to confirm it, we will turn it over. And the maker's name there is Goldscheider. Lots of other information which has, you believe, made in Austria. So obviously made, for the export market, not just for here, but obviously the colonies and, dare I say, America as well. Well, let me tell you now that if I wanted to go and party with this particular girl, I'd have to pay the best part of around about £600.
Right.
But having said that, I have to admit I've yet to meet an inexpensive party girl. Do they exist in Northampton?
No, they don't. No.
They don't. No. It's just a bit of wishful thinking on my part.
To me, this looks like the guests arriving at the Ugly Bug Ball. It's just beautiful. I mean, we've got, well, I say beautiful. It's an acquired taste, perhaps, but I like it. We've got all kinds of bugs setting off in this direction. We've got crickets and bees and wasps and locusts and everything you could possibly imagine. It's making me feel quite itchy just looking at it. Is it something you live with on the walls?
Oh, no. In fact, it's been packed away under a bed for the last 3-4 years. I was first promised it by my great-grandfather when I was about 5, and then when he passed away I actually lost touch with it for about 25-30 years. My father then proceeded to move down to Plymouth from London. I went up into his attic and there it was.
So when you rediscovered it, did all those sort of 5-year-old emotions come back and you...
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There were so many things as well that he promised me that the family heirlooms went, and this was the only thing really that I managed to retrieve. So I'm so fond of it. It's fascinating to look at.
It is. I mean, just to enjoy the workmanship in here. I mean, I'm putting my specs on because the work is absolutely fantastic. It's made of dyed silk, which has then been cut and put into place. The more you look at it, the more fabulous it is. I mean, the ears of corn here, each little grain beautifully applied. I mean, it is absolutely staggering. Now, as far as its origin is concerned, it's Japanese. Okay. It's dating from around 1880. And it's not surprising, really, that we've got this procession of bugs, because the Japanese are crazy about crickets, for instance. And what's rather nice here is that these little group of crickets are actually carrying, presumably either king cricket or queen cricket, in a little palanquin, in a little cricket box, taking them to the ball. And you've got pea pods here where you can actually see the peas inside. I love it. And the other thing which the Japanese are so great about is leaving empty space. Mm-hmm. If this was an European embroidery, they'd have said, oh, can't be doing with that. And then they'd have filled in every bit of blank canvas with some knick-knack or extra detail or clouds or whatever. The Japanese said, no, let's put it in space.
And that really works. What is nice is that you've got the original glass, which is a bit kind of ripply. And all it needs is for the glass to come out, give it a good clean, get it reframed, something very similar. I mean, you might even be able to restore this, and it's sorted. I think you should have it out. I think it's fabulous. At 5, you had a really good eye, obviously, for antiques, because this today would probably be worth between about £800 and £1,200.
Okay.
Not bad.
No, not bad at all.
For a bag of bugs.
That's right. Yeah. I like it even more now.
Joyce, we've got a marvellous collection of hats here, which I'm dying to try on. I think I might have to succumb to that in a minute. You were housekeeper here at Althorp for what, 17 years?
About 17 years.
And you must have seen some amazing things here in your time.
It's been history, really, because I've gone through all the royal side of things, you know, when we had royal visits when the two princes were very small.
Was that Princes William and Harry?
That's right, yes, it was. And that was always exciting. A lot of hard work, a tremendous amount of preparation, but the household was set up a little differently. It's a much more modern household now.
You took it upon yourself to clear out the attic here at Althorp.
No, I was asked to.
Oh, you were asked to clear out the attic?
I didn't dare,
And
no.
was it a bit of a glory hole up there?
Oh, it was wonderful.
And that's where you found these glorious hats. Tell me about this one.
Well, that would have been worn by the old coachman.
I've got to try it on. What do you think?
Oh, brilliant.
And when would a coachman have worn this? What period are we talking?
That particular one is a late Victorian. That would have been in the 5th Earl's time. Now, he was known as the Red Earl. He had a
great red beard, didn't he?
Yes.
Now, that's a fabulous thing. So this is worn by the coachman?
Yes, and he had, the 5th Earl had his own livery.
Now, this marvellous tin... Oh, look, there's a sorting hat in here. Oh, now, tell me about
magnificent,
this.
isn't it? I'm sure there's lots of people who would recognise that immediately. Needs a good polish now, actually.
All right. OK, so who would wear this?
Well, that is the 7th Earl Spencer.
Is right.
Correct.
That kind of thing.
Only you'd be on top of a horse with great long boots on as well. That belonged to he was in the first lifeguards. And what is missing at the moment, but somewhere, it should have been near that tin, there's a long, narrow tin, and that's the plume that the lifeguards attach to the top.
Oh, actually, oh, hang on. I'm quite glad to get that off, actually.
Yeah.
That weighs a ton. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has the wonderful title of Chairs to Mend, Umbrellas to Mend, and this charming interaction between these two. How did you come by this?
Well, it was part of my aunt's heirlooms, and it came to me through my father and my mother. She was in service, I believe in the 20s possibly, and I think this may have been given to her as a gift after she left service.
Right. Now, perhaps if we turn it over, we'll get to what we need to see. So here we've got Colonel J. Gale, which is Joseph Gale.
Joseph Gale.
And what do you know about Joseph Gale?
We did a little bit of research, and we found he was a member of the Linked Ring Brotherhood early on in the early 1890s, I believe.
The Linked Ring was a sort of a wonderful group of photographers who, rather like the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood and so on, had sort of high ideals about photography. They believed that photography was a high form of art.
Right.
So Gale was clearly mixing in the right circles, absolutely. And he had a nickname he was nicknamed the Rambler.
Right.
Because he was constantly rambling around Sussex and Surrey and so on, taking photos of one.
I did hear a story that he did get around, and in Elso churchyard, I think it was 1850, he was mistaken for a ghost and frightened the local children because he had his dark hood with a yellow window in it, and his arms came out. The children ran away and fetched the villagers because they thought they'd seen a ghost.
Amazing, the sort of suspicion.
Yeah, exactly. It was very early, I think, in photographic days.
The image itself is absolutely fantastic, I think, and it's full of it is a genre picture.
Yes, but I understand they were actually posed because of the times of the exposures. So he asked these people to stand still for many minutes.
So we've got the poor old lady here with the chair balancing it. You're quite right. She does look awfully posed. She looks very stiff
I think
there, doesn't
so,
she?
Yes, indeed.
And there is a really good market for this kind of photograph today. He charged 5 guineas for it in 1902.
That's right, it's on the back of the,
yes.
The frame.
Which was a substantial amount of money, 5 guineas. But, you know, I still think it's worth a substantial amount of money today. And interestingly, I think it begins with a 5. But I think it's probably nearer 5,000 rather than 5 guineas.
Grief.
So it's a sort of, you know, it's a really rather wonderful picture.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much indeed.
It's great to be able to deal with a discovery of sorts of a living artist, or in this case, a group of living artists.
Yeah.
Now, which of you unearthed these?
I did.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
How did it happen?
I basically salvaged them almost from going into a skip. I'm an electrician working down in London. I had to disconnect all the electrics, and they're refurbishing the flats and ripping everything out of the flats, carpets, kitchens, and just basically throwing everything in the skip. So I just basically stopped a labourer from throwing all these into a skip.
So what happened next then? You grabbed them up?
Yeah, they've basically been sitting around the house, or various houses, for the last 5 years in various places, under settees, under beds, just wrapped up, sitting there really, not knowing what to do.
I loved them. I loved the artwork and I loved the designs of them. I got quite interested and started looking up a little bit about them, and everyone just laughed at me. So there's you know, especially you.
It took a bit of convincing to bring them here, really.
And I just thought, bring them here and see what.
What do you know about the art itself? Because a year seems to be coming up. 1972, one or two of these things are dated.
73.
73. So, what do we think's happened? Do we reckon all of this stuff was produced around about then?
I guess so. I mean,
They were all together in the same building.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. You know.
I think rather amazingly, you've unearthed the remnants of a commune, but a commune of artists, or a group of artists of Argentinian origin, all of whom must have got together, cross-pollinated like contemporary artists do, and produced some pretty zany art, to tell you the truth. I mean, let's take this fella here. It's by John Carlos Steckelmann. And Steckelmann is obviously, in the 70s, doing the sort of stuff that is quite edgy. I mean, one or two people, I've seen the expressions of the audience, one or two people not quite sure what the Antiques Roadshow is doing, you know. But it is nonetheless, you know, edgy, modern art. And if you look into Steckelmann's life, he has paintings represented in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. I mean, that's form.
It is.
It's amazing.
And then going on to the others, now, being a Catholic, I'm fine with religious art. I actually think that it's a really powerful tool to communicate emotion. And this is a bit like a Graham Sutherland sort of crucifixion. And you've got these spiky fingers. And this is by a chap called Salvador Benjua. But I don't know much about him. I mean, I had a quick look. I mean, there's a little bit, but he's not a big name. Not a big name like this fella. I've counted, I think you've got 9 or 10 of these, of which you've got 3 or 4 prints by a guy called Pérez Celis. Now, Pérez Celis is a really, really big name in Buenos Aires, but also, believe it or not, in Japan as well. And his work can be seen in the Museum of Modern Art as well. So you've got some happening things here. And it's thrilling to have come across them all.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Let's have a look at the Juan Carlos Steckelmanns. Well framed up, with a bit of form attached in the form of publicised provenance and exhibition details. I could see these making £1,200–1,500 a piece, easily. Well, why not? You know, why not? And then let's take the Salvador Benjua. Well, you know, why not 300 or 400, 500 at least? And these prints, well, I mean, Pérez Celis is a big name. So, you know, why not £200 or £300 a piece for these?
Oh, right.
I mean, I'm slightly sticking my neck out here, but I mean, he is a man, he's a colossus in Argentina. He's a man who is worth taking seriously. So you've got what, 10 of these, 3 originals? Yeah. Well, we've got probably what, £4,000 or £5,000 worth of work here, potentially. Thank you so much.
That's all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That just goes to show that one man's junk is another's treasure. A great collection of modern art for Philip Mould to unpick at the end of our day in Althorp. Our recent visit to Ascot Racecourse was equally rich in finds. Eager roadshow fans packed the pavilion when they visited our experts there, even spilling out onto the grandstand entrance drive.
This bit of furniture always stood in my grandparents' property up in Scotland. They had a tenement flat in Edinburgh, and this always stood in the bay window. And I believe he bought it when he was a bit of a rake after the First World War. And,
A bit of a rake, I like.
A bit of a rake he was, yes. He was a balloonist in the R8 or Royal Flying Corps, I think it was then. However, it stayed there as a piece of furniture during my lifetime until I was 18, when I was up on holiday with a chum of mine, and we came in with a 4-pack of beer, and my grandmother said, well, why don't you use one of the pint glasses in the cocktail cabinet? I said, what cocktail cabinet? So we went into the front room, into the bay window, and she lifted the lid, just like this. This is what I saw for the first time.
Oh, wow, it's fantastic.
Yes.
That must have been a bit of a surprise.
It was
for
a surprise, and I can tell you honestly that the beer tasted wonderful in one of those pint glasses.
Well, one of the things I've noticed straight away is here it says Brahma, London.
Oh.
And that is a sign of super quality, really good quality lock. So this is a really good quality piece of furniture. Now, I'm just interested to see what goes on in here. See, there it is again. Look, Brahma, London, and here is the retailer, Edwards & Sons, Regent Street. So this actually went from Regent Street in London, found its way up to Edinburgh, and this would have been new in about 1920.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this was a highly fashionable, highly expensive piece of furniture. And it's interesting to know that he spent that amount of money. But I mean, look at this, it's absolutely fantastic. It's a lovely, original mahogany lemon squeezer.
Yeah, that actually fits in here.
Oh, well, why don't you show me how it works?
OK, that fits in there.
Absolute the height of luxury.
Whilst you prepare your lemon and also prepare your glassware to take the juice. And squeeze away and it drops into the bowl.
Well, there is no more appropriate venue for this than here. Do you know, in Royal Ascot Week, they expect to sell anything up to 14,000 bottles of Pimm's.
Oh, my word.
During the week. And wouldn't it be fantastic if they could be drinking it out of this?
Absolutely.
And you clearly love it. Do you still use it?
Oh, yes, I have the occasional pint out of the glass. We don't open it too much because we don't have a bay window and I have to pull it away from the wall every time we want to go in
Well,
there.
you've actually touched on something really important. Anything with a rising top like this in a domestic environment at the moment is not hugely convenient because it means that every time you want to get in here, you've got to take everything off.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's its downside.
Yeah.
Everything else about it is absolutely glorious. In fact, you are missing one or two glasses.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think, with the new current interest in all things alcoholic, you might find that a reasonable estimate for this is somewhere between £1,000 and £1,500.
Golly. Oh, my word. It's truth.
This is a really nice impressionistic harbour scene. And I see it's signed down here, Phelan Gibb. I first knew about him in 1981 when I was doing a valuation in Sussex for an art gallery. There were a whole lot by Phelan Gibb. This is obviously a French harbour scene. Do you know where it is?
It's La Rochelle.
Is it?
On the west coast, yeah. Around
So how did it come into the family?
My grandparents knew Phelan Gibb and his wife, and for their 25th wedding anniversary in 1954, my father paid £25 for it as a gift for them, and then my grandmother left it to me when she died in the late 90s.
And what did your grandmother tell you about Phelan Gibb?
She didn't talk too much about Phelan, more about his wife Marjorie, and she said, you know, apparently in the cottage, after Phelan had died, the cottage was absolutely jam-packed with paintings just leaning against the walls.
How sad that is,
Yeah,
isn't it, really?
definitely, yeah.
He was born in Alnwick in Northumbria, and he studied in Scotland. And then he went to Paris to study. I know that his best years in Paris, he spent 25 years out there from 1910. And he was very much influenced by Cézanne. But I've seen a lot of figurative things by him, not a lot of harbour scenes. And I see you're holding a sculpture.
That's right, yes.
Can I have a look at that?
Certainly.
And underneath here, we got Phelan Gibb. Now, he's not known to be a sculptor.
Oh, really?
And here we've got a clay sculpture, which has been glazed and hand-painted in blue. Now, if I showed you the paintings that I saw in 1981, the ones which were very much influenced by Gauguin,
Yeah.
that's exactly the figures
Oh,
that were in
really?
his pictures. Very stylised figures.
Yeah.
And I never knew he did things like this, so it's quite rare. But having told you all this, Is he well known today? No, he's not. And yet, in his lifetime, he was admired by a lot of artists, and Roger Fry, who was a great art critic and artist, really admired Feeling Good. And I'm glad that we got it here today, just to show how talented he was. And a name, and you know, he died in the 1940s, and he's up there with the best of them. Now we have to come to a value. Well, I have sold his work occasionally, and I think this is probably worth, in auction, in the region of £1,500 to £2,500.
Yeah. Well, in all the wars and battles of recent years, certainly from the Second World War onwards, we're used to seeing tanks careering across battlefields. But during the First World War, of course, it was an incredibly rare sight. And for a German or a British soldier, particularly German, to see a tank coming towards him in no man's land must have been absolutely terrifying. But here you brought along this wonderful silver model of a First World War British tank. Why have you brought it? Where has it come from?
Well, it's actually from my father's side of the family. My great-great-grandfather, Ernest Squires, was a engineer from the West Midlands who designed the mechanism that keeps caterpillar tracks on tanks. So he designed that for King and Country, and as a recognition, Winston Churchill suggested these tanks were made, and he also suggested that you should get the CBE, and hence it sort of sits at home. We look at it and think that's very nice, and I thought the time has come to come and get an expert's opinion on it, really.
Okay. What I love about this is the fact that it is an incredibly detailed model of the First World War tank, made by Elkingtons, and it is silver, of course. I mean, if we look around on this side, we've got the silver hallmark there, which is for Birmingham 1918. And in fact, we've got the Elkingtons mark just to the left of the hallmark. So it's a beautiful piece. Now, Elkingtons made a lot of models. They made guns, cannons, they made airplanes, all of silver, beautiful silver models. This tank may not be a unique piece. It may be that they made several others.
Well, yeah, I'm led to believe there are in fact three. One in the Churchill family, one in our family home, and either one at the tank works itself in Albury, or potentially one in the tank artillery as well, in their officers' mess.
You've also brought along some photographs, and this photograph shows precisely how these tanks were to climb over incredibly rough ground. But of course they weren't infallible, and in fact we've got one here that shows how it's got rather stuck. And I quite like the attitude of the officers standing beneath the tank thinking, you know, what on earth are we going to do with this? I think they need a lot of manpower to get that out. But the interesting photograph to me is the photograph of the works where the tanks were made.
Yep.
And it shows very clearly here the workings, the construction of the tanks, and more particularly what was interesting to your great-great-grandfather, of course, the tracks, and how the tracks were laid out and how the tracks were placed around these runners. And you've also brought a letter here, which is dated January 1918 from Whitehall, and it's signed Winston Churchill. So it says, "My dear sir, I've had much pleasure in recommending to the Prime Minister that you should be appointed Commander of the Order of the British Empire, and I'm glad to learn that His Majesty has approved the recommendation. Pray accept my hearty congratulations on this recognition of your valuable services. Yours truly, Winston Churchill." And this actually has a value as well, you know. Anything with Winston Churchill's original signature on has a value. This, to your great-great-grandfather, Ernest Squires, I guess is probably worth £500 on its own.
Excellent.
I reckon today, if this came up at auction, you'd certainly get £4,000, if not a touch more.
Okay, that's good. Well, I inherit it next.
When I found out I was going to be working on this programme, one of the first things I thought was, I'll bring along my old doll collection, which I've had, well, I haven't looked at it for 30 years. But actually, now it comes to it, I'm slightly nervous about it because I mean, I don't think it's worth tuppence really, but I just thought it might be fun to have a look at.
So are you feeling like an Antiques Roadshow punter?
I do. I can see what it feels like sitting here now. I do feel slightly trepidatious, actually.
A bit sweaty palmed?
Yes.
Well, don't worry, you're in good hands.
Oh,
I'll treat
thank
you
you, Hilary.
gently. Now, have you had it long, madam?
Yes, I have. Look, and actually, I brought along. I haven't looked at the contents for a good 30 years, but I brought.
Hang on. Before I even look at the box.
Oh, okay.
There are some clues here into early Bruce childhood, isn't
Right.
there? So there's Singapore on here on the box.
Yes, because I was born in Singapore and I lived there as a child. In fact,
Yes.
I brought along a little picture, so you could imagine the girl collecting these dolls.
Hasn't changed a bit.
And yes, and my dad used to travel abroad quite a lot. And when he'd go, most of the time he would bring back a doll from that particular country. And when I was a child, about this age, I was very much into my dollies. I really loved collecting them. And then packed them all away when I was about 10. And that's it. And I haven't seen them since.
Well, interestingly enough, my dad also did a lot of travelling, and I was given a lot of dolls. And I bet we're going to find we had the same dolls. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Let's have a look.
So, favourites amongst here?
Yes, there was
or
one doll that
Floozy
I
or-
remember that had lots of different hats. She was a Chinese hat. Oh, I haven't seen this for ages. Oh, and there was a lovely doll that went with this. Look.
Oh, that's very sweet. That looks like a sort of
Tyrolean or
Swiss,
something.
yeah. Oh, so he went to Spain.
Oh, I loved her. Oh no, we've got to open up the skirt. Look,
all right,
I'll
you
do
do
all
that.
That belonged to my grandpa, I think. Or
Possible.
or to my mum.
To your mum.
To
more
my
like, I would
mum.
have thought.
Look at him. And then I had him. How sweet is he? Little
Well-
sort of milk herd person or
He's a
something.
lonely goat herd.
He's a lonely
We
goat
could sing a
herd.
song.
Oh,
if you
don't get me
like.
started, Hilary, because I might just.
Oh no. Oh, did you say you liked a hat lady?
Oh,
Is this
that's
the hat
her.
lady? Your father was obviously far more widely travelled than my dad.
That was my favourite. Oh, and it's all still intact. Look at her.
You do the looking. I'll do
I'll do the
hard
looking.
work.
Okay.
It looks like a framed print, but of course it's made of porcelain, doesn't
Yes.
it? Yeah. Where did you get it from?
My father-in-law gave it to me. He lived in the village of Warfield all his life, and he was interested in the countryside, and he was interested in hunting, and he was also interested in drinking. And
right.
yeah, and when he got older and he couldn't drive, I used to take him to the pub and pick him up. And he said, "Well, you've been really good to me," and he gave me that.
All right. It's a lovely hunting scene, so for his interest, one can understand his liking that subject. The foxhounds here.
Yeah.
But when you look closely at the figures themselves, their faces, they're not English fox hunters at all. They've got a Chinese look to them. But this was made in China. It's an English print from the 18th century was sent out to China about 1770, and back from China came this, carefully copied in every detail. Every little line of that and dot of that engraving has been copied, but by hand
Yes.
instead of by engraving.
Yeah, have you spotted what the horses doing to the hounds?
Oh, they get a bit of a shock, aren't
Yeah,
they?
it's
Right. I mean, that must have been, I suppose, on the print,
Yes.
unless that's a feature they've added themselves.
Yeah.
It's lovely, but it's quite a rare thing, you know.
I didn't. I mean, my father-in-law, he wasn't wealthy or anything. He was quite a poor man, really.
Oh, well, you did him a favour. He's given you one because this plaque, it's worth, I suppose, £3,000.
No. Well, he's dead, obviously, but he'd be pleased if he knew.
Now then, Mrs.
Yes.
Bruce, I have to ask you if you're planning to book an expensive holiday on the basis of what we have here
Now,
arrayed.
I've got, I thought about this before I came, and I thought the moment's going to come when you're going to say, have you thought about having these insured? And
well, the good
could
news...
I ask you with a straight face, because the fact is they can't be worth tuppence.
The good news is you do not have to worry about insurance.
Now that's a surprise.
The bad news is that lots of us have got the collections and there are not many people out there buying them. So there are a few interesting ones. The Little Scotsman is perhaps one of the more interesting. The Little Lonely Goat Herd, Milkman, is one of the more interesting. But the rest of them really fall into the category of just a few pounds each. The great thing is that you still love them. I think that there's probably room somewhere in your house for the shelf to be resurrected, the collection to be put out on show, and it will become a focus, a conversation piece for parties in the future. But what a lovely insight into Fiona, age 10.
Hilary, thank you. Thank you very much.
I love this Keith Murray vase. I mean, it's obvious it's Keith Murray. It has his name on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Do you love it as well?
I think it's fantastic, yes. It belonged to my father. He gave it to his first wife who died in childbirth, and I just have always loved it. I mean, he died a long time ago, and it's sort of been precious to me.
So you inherited it, or?
No, it belonged to my mum. She sold it to somebody in Brighton, one of those people who come round and knock on doors and say, hey, can I see your antiques? Mm-hmm. And she sold it to them for £100, along with a green one.
A green one as well?
A green one.
Right.
I know.
Right.
I know. So I said, look, don't do that. What's happening? Anyway, I found out his number and I got it back, but I didn't get the green one back.
So how much did you pay for this one?
The same amount, £100. I got it back
for one vase?
Yeah.
So the green one had sold, or?
I don't know what happened. She
Right.
said it was broken anyway, and forget about that.
Well,
or rather, it was,
we'll talk a bit about the vase. It's a great story. It is Keith Murray, as you know.
Yeah.
He was a New Zealand-born designer who trained, like a lot of good artists, trained as an architect. But he couldn't find enough work as an architect, so became a designer. He designed for Wedgwood, he designed for glass companies, he also did graphic design. These were made on a lathe. This would be put on a lathe and turned, and you can see, if you feel it, you can feel the ridges are almost, and you can just imagine the tools going into it. So it's an amazing piece of great 1930s design. So you paid £100 for it a few years ago. Today, it is just what collectors are looking for, and they would pay £500 for it.
Right.
So you did good to get it back. And I'll give it back to you now.
Now, if I was to hope to find on a roadshow an English bronze, this is it. It's the most glorious piece, it's alluring, it's wonderfully evocative. Now, why do you have such a great thing?
I brought her along on behalf of my friend, who she belongs to, and she wanted to know more about her.
Right, as simple as that.
Simple as that.
And why does your friend have her?
Her father gave it to her a couple of years ago, and her father's aunt was Henrietta Ray.
Hang on a minute. So Henrietta Ray, I think I've heard of as a late Victorian painter.
That's right, that's what
I think
we
she was
know.
born in the 1850s.
Yes.
Classical subjects. So obviously there's an artistic connection coming through the family.
That's right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Because what we're looking here at is something that is really an important object of that period. Have you heard of, or do you know about a painter called Lord Leighton, Frederick Leighton?
Yes, I have heard that name. Yes.
Yeah. Now, Leighton was a major figure. He was born in 1830, died in 1896. He was primarily a painter, and he was the most successful painter ever in British history. He became a knight, he became a lord, all through the power of art. No other painter has ever done it like that. He painted classical scenes, but then in the 1870s he became a sculptor, and he became involved in the rediscovery of the Renaissance, of things like Michelangelo's David. He was involved in the classical traditions, but what he did also was be aware of France. He was thinking of people like Rodin, where all that formality of the classical figure, where it's all sort of muscles and structure and positioning, he said, no, we've got to be much more naturalistic. We've really got to make these things as though they're real people, not sort of static classical figures. And so a girl like this is, I think, full of that. She's anatomically correct, but she's full of life. She's impressionistic. It's a word you can use about this.
Yes.
His first famous sculpture in 1877 was an athlete wrestling with a python, which you may have seen. Then he did one called The Sluggard, and then he did this, which is called Needless Alarms. And it's needless alarms. It's a girl frightened by a frog.
Yeah.
And she's pulling back from it, but it's actually a harmless creature. Now, made in the 1880s, obviously there were lots of casts. To say this is the only one is completely untrue. Okay. There were lots of casts, and therefore your friend's father, knowing Henrietta Ray, artistic community, Henrietta Ray probably knew Leighton. So you can see how it came down that route.
Yes.
For me it is so exciting to see something which is right at the beginning of modern art in Britain, to see it on the roadshow, and above all else to see something I'd really love to have. I've always admired this. There are lots of casts. This is probably a cast of about 1910. It would be very hard to be precise. It's a very valuable thing. Is your friend aware of that?
No.
Right. Well, you can tell her from me we're talking 10, 12, possibly £15,000.
My God.
Do you wish it was yours?
I do.
Well, this looks like the most remarkable archive to me. Can you tell me about it? Tell me its history.
Well, my father was Captain Tom Fothergill, was commander of the battleship Marlborough in 1919, and which was dispatched by King George V to Yalta to rescue the remainder of the Russian royal family, which was the Empress and about 30 princes and princesses and 42 children and a stack of gear.
Extraordinary, isn't it? And I did see in this letter from the Empress here. Can you tell me about that one, madam? Tell me.
You read it.
I'll read it. And it says, "Let me once more express to you the most heartfelt and grateful thanks for all your kindness shown to me by you and your officers aboard your beautiful Marlborough, which so helped us all. My only regret is you could not bring us all here. Many kind regards to you, Maria Feodorovna, the Dowager Empress of Russia."
Very upsetting for
Very
her
upsetting.
to have lost the lot,
Yes.
basically, except the...
Yes. Well, here we can see the Dowager Empress on board the Marlborough, and in the front of the album there's a very striking photograph of the ship itself. And it's a very informative one and captioned by your father here. But these are his own snapshots, which makes this whole thing completely magical. And of course the context of this extraordinary story is too terrible to imagine, because here we have a list of princes and aristocrats who had an absolute sense that they were being pursued by people who were after their lives. And along comes a British ship to come and rescue them with your father. And so an enormous sense of gratitude. The realization of what could have happened to them was very obvious rather later on, when they learnt the fate of the imperial family who were murdered in Ekaterinburg, the Tsar, the Tsarina, and all their children shot against a wall. And that is what would have been these people's fate had your father not saved them. And she lost everything, really, in terms of family, and I think that must have marked her life forever. She was a very well-known figure in London society much later on. And curious enough, I remember Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, telling me that she could remember the Dowager Empress on the balcony at her wedding. And was very keen to remind me, frankly, that the British had sent what she called a destroyer to rescue the Dowager Empress. And so it's very, very recent history, frankly, isn't it?
Yes.
And he didn't go unrewarded, did he? Because tell us about this.
That is the Order of St. Anne, which my father got when being involved in this thing.
Yes, and quite a high order from the Empress as recognition for that. Also accompanying it is this marvellous album, and in the back here we can see the Cossacks. And the Cossacks were fantastically loyal to the imperial family. They're actually captioned the Empress's Cossacks. And I think we'll really think twice before challenging the Empress with those two fellows waiting outside. So how do you measure something like this? I mean, it's almost obscene to try to value it, but the absolute facts of this is that there's never been a higher point for recent Russian history than now. And the Russians themselves, ironically, are very, very interested in all things Russian. It is a perfect context, and if it was entered into a sale, I think it could fetch thousands of pounds. And if you were jolly lucky, you might attract a Russian buyer, and it might even go to 10,000. But in a funny way, 10,000 pounds to me is a fraction of what it's worth in the way that it affects me and the way it affects you. And I thank you very much for bringing it. Thank you.
I'm so
Thank
pleased.
This is just the most sumptuous and stunning picture. I'm so thrilled to see it. Do you know anything about it yourself?
It was left to me by my great aunt, and all she said was that it was Jacobean needlework, and that's really all I know about it. Somewhere in the back of my mind tells me that it was left to her by her companion, that she was a spinster, and she shared the house in Bournemouth with this lady.
And did she love it?
Oh yes. Apparently it hung in her bedroom for many, many years. So, but apart from that, I did take it to a museum when I first got it.
How long ago was that?
I got it in 1980.
Right.
When they actually begged me to let them have it to display in the museum, and I said
no, as you do.
And we had it valued for insurance purposes. But other than that, at the museum they told me lots of things, but you just don't remember them, and that's why I bought it today, because I want to know more about it, to record it properly.
Well, I'm so delighted that you did. You said Jacobean. I would question that. My feeling is that it dates somewhere more towards 1630. What's interesting about these needlework pictures is that their outline is drawn. I mean, we think of the sort of needlework kit that you can buy nowadays as being, you know, how it is and what we're used to. But here we have it in 1630, that the ivory ground, silk ground, has the basic outlines already stamped on it. And a child, maybe as young as 12, could have worked this. I mean, there is historical evidence to say that children and young adults, because of course needlework was absolutely quintessential. It was part of a young gentlewoman's training, was to be taught how to sew. And imagine being faced with something like this. Here we have a portrait within this beautiful garland, and every sort of bug and caterpillar and these lovely flowers. And my instinct tells me that this is probably the wife of Charles I, Henrietta Maria, who was married by proxy and came to England. And I think that this would have been a very public image, and an engraving or whatever could have been seen. The image was then transposed onto the silk. And here she is in this lovely setting. You've got a sort of panoply of buildings at the back. And what I love is at a certain light you'll see that they're sewn with little tiny bits of mica, which when the light falls on it makes the windows glitter. Mm-hmm. And here she's holding a little bunch of flowers. There's a rose and a tulip, just a very little simple nosegay. And behind her, in the lake, you've got this lovely fish's head popping out of the water. I mean, there's every sort of, there's a lion, a leopard, and the whole creation is just fantastic. But one of my favourite bits, here you've got these two birds, and I may be being fanciful here, but the bird is quite quiet, and here is the male with his wings all outstretched, and there's definitely a bit of courting going on, I feel. I think it's completely lovely. This, I think, is an 18th century frame, but it's very appropriate. I think originally it could have been framed in something like a tortoiseshell frame. So you had it valued in, did you say 20, 25 years ago?
28 years ago, yes.
Do you remember how much that was?
I believe it was about £800.
Well, that was a lot of money, wasn't it?
That was just for insurance purposes, of course.
And you were thrilled?
Absolutely, yes.
Well, I have absolute no hesitation in putting £10,000 on it now.
Well, I don't intend selling it at all, but wow. Okay.
I'm told that on a race day here at Ascot, the punters get through 40,000 bottles of champagne and 40,000 portions of strawberries and cream. Well, we can't stretch to quite that tally on the roadshow, but our experts have probably seen something like 10,000 items today. And Hilary Kay thinks probably a couple of hundred of those were my dolls, which I've packed away now, and I guess it'll probably be, what, 30 years before I look at them again. And they might be worth something by then. Let's hope so. From Ascot, bye-bye.